So we're going to be talking about pressureless lumber treatments. So I would like to start by just talking for a minute about lumber. I noticed when I went over the registration list last night that this is a rather diverse group of professionals. However, obviously, we all have one thing in common, and that is that we do something with wood, with lumber. There are a number of reasons why I have heard that professionals in and around the building industry and manufacturing use wood. They have to do with cost. It is a natural, sustainable material. It is lightweight. Those are probably the top ones, but I could go on. So for starters, treated to last, how pressureless lumber delivers durable results. That is what we're working on. We talked about why we use wood, and I want to start off now by looking at some of the reasons, some of the problems and challenges that we have to overcome when we are using wood. Basically, our challenges are fire, mold, the environment, termites, and stability. So basically, these things come down to costs, essentially. The cost of repairs, the cost of replacement, the cost in human suffering with disease and ultimate death. And stability also is a matter of cost. If your lumber pile is likely to twist and warp, then your procurement officer probably has padded your lumber order by 10 to 20% to make sure that there's not a work stoppage in the middle of your project. That's money that could be better spent. So let's talk about how the pressureless lumber treatment process works. Basically, we expose lumber to a solution, and the lumber is naturally impregnated by the solution through a process called diffusion. It's just a scientific word that means it moves from the outside to the inside. It moves from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. The best thing to compare this to is pressure treat. So for generations, the solution to protecting lumber from all of those problems that we just looked at was to pressure treat. And pressure treat is basically to take some chemicals and jam them into the wood. In some cases, poking holes and incising the lumber. One of the things that happens when we do that is it breaks down the cell walls. And this is why pressure treat lumber can be kind of spongy. I don't know if you've ever taken apart something that was built with pressure treat, like if you pulled an old deck off the back of your house, you'll notice that where the boards come together, there's sort of an indentation from one to the other. It's lost its structural integrity over time. With the pressureless process, we do not break down the cell walls, so the lumber maintains its stability. This is a photograph, actually. It's a cross section, and you can see how the treatment has penetrated the wood. If you've ever taken a piece of pressure treat, like a pressure treat post, and cut it off, you will not see this sort of penetration, not even close. With all of that pressure applied, still the protectant solution does not travel very far into the wood. So by eliminating the pressure process, we're not breaking down the lumber and we're saving energy. The process of pressure treated requires a pressure tank and high temperature kiln. This process requires expensive equipment, and it also takes energy to run. As opposed to that, the actual pressureless process looks like this. This thing in the middle here is just a treating line. And if you're familiar with any sort of spray treatments, it's very similar to a spray line. The lumber rolls through there on those roller bars. And when it goes into those tunnels, it is sprayed with the chemical solution on all sides. We treat all sides of the lumber, and that way the solution can be absorbed into the wood. It comes off of that line, and you can see these photographs here. The lumber is then wet stacked, and in some cases plastic wrapped. It's wet stacked in order to allow that the solution to penetrate before it can evaporate off of the surface. Once the penetration period is complete, the lumber is set out, it is dry, and it is ready to use. During that wet stack process, the solution sets up this semi-permeable skin around the outside of the lumber. That happens within 45 minutes, and after 4 hours, it's completely cured. That keeps the solution from leaching back out. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of driving a nail into a pressure treat board, and you can actually feel the splash. It's the liquid. And when you lift up pressure treat, you can tell it's heavy and it's wet. Pressure-less treated lumber treated with TechWood treatments, is dry to the touch, and it is light. It is lighter than pressure treat, which cuts down on shipping costs, of course. This semi-permeable skin slows the moisture transpiration. That is really the key to the twisting and the warping. We can slow down the rate at which the lumber naturally dries, and therefore it's not going to twist and warp. And also, this semi-permeable barrier forms a smooth base for paint and stain to adhere to. I've been told that it's kind of similar to primed lumber. When you get it, it's treated and it's ready for painting, the paint sticks very well. So the benefits of pressureless treated, I'm sure you've begun to figure that one out from what I've been telling you. But it's pressureless is a non-toxic solution. So that means that I don't know if you realize, but when you deal with pressure treat lumber, you are not supposed to touch it. You are supposed to wear protective gear when you cut it. You are not supposed to burn it or bury it because of the toxicity of it. Pressureless treatment doesn't have any of those problems. You can cut it, you can touch it, you can carry it, you can bury it if you choose. You can burn it to dispose of it, unless of course it's fire treat, and that's not going to work for you. It is, because it's non-toxic, it can also be used in interior applications, say wood framing around windows. You don't have to worry if the dog licks the windowsill or anything. You're not bringing toxicity into your home, and in fact, you're keeping it out. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And because of the improved stability, there's no twisting and warping. So you're on the construction site, you grab a stick off the pile, you do what you got to do, you frame in a door, you come back the next day, that frame is still square. The homeowner calls you 3 years down the road. It's not because that door has gone out of square. It has not settled. That lumber is stable. And this also means that at the end of the day on the job site, you don't have a pile of basically useless wood that has twisted or cracked or warped that you have to pick through in order to find something to build with. Pressureless treated lumber also maintains its mechanical integrity. What this means for you engineers is you're not calculating a loss of strength. And I don't know about you, I'm sure if you're engineers, you're great with numbers and you love math, but I don't like math. So anytime I can avoid calculating something, I'm happy about that. There is no loss of strength with pressureless treated lumber. Therefore, you can skip that calculation step. And as I mentioned before, it's also lighter than pressure treat, which to me has at least two benefits. One is that, you're building those trusses, they're going up on top. I want those to be as light, strong, but as light as possible. And two, if I'm shipping a whole truckload of treated lumber to the job site, I want to pay less in freight because it's not as heavy as pressure treat. Pressureless lumber treatment is also non-toxic and eco-friendly. We're certified by OSHA on the building side, and on the building owner side, we have UL Green Guard Gold certification. I believe that those two certifications speak for themselves. We'll talk a little bit further on about things like improved indoor air quality, but these certifications basically attest to those things. This is a big one, this improved indoor air quality. It basically happens in two ways. One, once the lumber is treated with TechWood products, it is not going to mold. So mold is not going to bloom on the surface. It's kind of an interesting thing. I recently read about the process that they use I believe it's in the EU market for transporting wood crates and wood pallets. The wood has to actually be heat treated at an incredibly high temperature in order to kill any existing mold or bugs. The idea is that when the lumber is harvested in one place and then it's made into these crates or pallets, and those are used to ship products to many other places, they don't want to be dragging along the mold, the fungus, the bugs that existed in the place of origin. However, after all of that heat treatment that does in fact kill mold and kill bugs, there is nothing keeping mold from then growing on the outside of that lumber. And that is purely environmental. It simply has to do with those pallets or those crates being transported or stored under conditions which are ripe for mold. And let's face it, there's a lot of transport situations, containers, trucks, trains, cold storage, where the conditions could be right to develop mold. So they kill the initial mold, but they don't protect it going forward. TechWood pressureless lumber treatments protect the lumber going forward. You're not going to have mold blooming on the surface of that lumber anymore. And it is resistant to termites. We warranty that. So that's one way that our lumber treatment products protect the indoor air quality. And the other way is, remember I talked about that semi-permeable skin on that sets up on the outside of the lumber. Well, that actually sequesters the naturally occurring formaldehydes inside the wood, and therefore it cuts down on the VOCs in the air. So improved indoor air quality is really a huge benefit of using TechWood lumber treated products. This is also important. It's non-corrosive. So that means you don't need special fasteners. It means that sill plates are appropriate for cement contact. So let me talk to you a little bit about our 3 levels of warranted protection. So we essentially have 3 levels of products. So level 1 is the protectants. That protects against mold, it protects against decay and termites, and it increases the stability of the lumber. It sets up that semi-permeable barrier, which keeps the lumber from twisting and warping. Now I'm going to skip ahead to level 3. Level 3 is our Class A 30-minute fire retardant. And we recently had that listed for a firewall assembly. So that is fire protection on your lumber that meets building code. It's essentially FRT, except it's better because our level 3 product also includes all of those protectants that are in the level 1 product. It's all of it all together. In between those two, we have a level 2 product that has all of the protectants of the level 1, and it has some fire. So that one has the Class A 10-minute fire retardant. This is a great option, especially for custom homes where the fire retardant is not required by code, but it's nice to have. That gives you a reasonable level of protection without going all out on the full 30-minute. So here's just a list of our warranted protections. Our products are warranted for job site storage as well as for once the project is dried in. So for mold, it's 4 months of job site storage, 6 months of exposed vertical state. So we're still on the job site, but it's actually been put up, but not closed in yet. And 5 years once the structure is closed in. And we offer a 10-year warranty against termites. If you are building in Florida, you probably know that Florida requires new builds offer 1-year warranty. You could be offering your customer something significantly more than that. As I mentioned before, we have our 4400 Class A 30-minute fire protectant is listed for a 2-hour firewall assembly. And this is the diagram, the structure of that wall assembly. I will send this to you. I'm sure these things are too small to read. It's basically a wood stud wall with 2 layers of gypsum on the inside and a layer of protected sheathing on the outside, and plaster stucco outside of that. I'm just taking a breath in case somebody has a question or wants to jump in and say something. So let's talk about where you can use pressureless treated lumber. Basically everywhere. Because it is non-toxic, you can use it indoors on like indoor trim and exposed wood beams. And you can also use it in framing. Probably the most obvious use is in framing because it's structural as well as protected. But there are also, I mean, roof decking, prime example. Um, deck joists. Now we don't do decking because horizontal installation, we're not certified for horizontal installation in which the water could potentially pool on the surface. But anything that's undercover or vertical installation, including the deck joists. And I know that there's been some issues with the composite decking rotting out the deck joists. We don't have that problem. In fact, we are kind of the solution to that problem, using our treated lumber for the deck joists, and then a sill tape, or there's another word for it, which I always forget at this moment, and then putting the composite decking on top. It protects the water from getting in between the decking and the joist and sitting there. And so there's no rotting issue with our treated lumber. The other thing on this slide is I made a little list over here of the types of lumber that we treat. So I always get questions about what can we treat. Pretty much anything that is made from wood is what we treat. To include dimensional lumber, plywood, OSB, glulam, LVLs, and pretty much every other wood component that you can think of. Code compliance is an important one, especially when we're talking about fire treat. Our 4400, which is our fire retardant, meets the building code as an alternative to FRT. Full stop. So I have some evidence here, and on the next slide, and again, I will send this to you so you can read all the words. You don't want me to read to you from the code. But this slide in particular shows, pulls snippets from the code and explains how TechWood 4400 actually meets that criteria. And shows some of our flame spread stats from testing data and strength testing data. A lot of people want to know, architects. We'll start with architects. First of all, you can spec our product. You can spec TechWood treatments. If you are an RCAT user, we actually have a listing in the program that makes it a little bit easier to spec. Otherwise, you can go to our website, and on our website, there is a resources page that has all of the technical documents you could probably would be looking for, from our technical evaluation reports to our SDS sheets. And if there is something more technical that you do not find up there, you can always shoot me an email, and I'll be more than happy to find it for you and send it to you. Typically, contractors ask me where they can buy TechWood treated lumber. So there's a complicated answer to that question. It's not as easy as running off to your Home Depot. However, I can have samples sent to you if it's something that you would like to look into. And basically, when we have new customers, I run through me so that I can coordinate what licensee you're using, what type of treatment you need, is the application appropriate, and what's the best way for us to get that lumber treated and to your job site. In some cases, that means I'm sourcing lumber from a lumber list from you, treating it and shipping it to your job site. In some cases, I have contractors who actually bring in their lumber, drop it off, and then come back and pick it up after it's been treated. In some cases, when we're talking about special millwork or something unusual, you can have it shipped to us or one of our applicators, one of our licensees around the country. And again, this is where I like to get involved with when you're a new customer, because I can locate those for you. I can put you in touch with them, and we can figure out the best way to get the materials to your job site. One of my colleagues, Todd, has chimed in to tell us that we have the only OSB treatment that has passed the fire test without major structural loss. Thanks, Todd. I appreciate that. Engineers in the audience, if you want to get in touch, I can send you the data, the actual numbers that you need to calculate or not calculate strength losses.
Hey, Christine.
Yes.
Tim Weaver here. How does your 2-hour wall assembly, how does that differ from other wall assemblies that have been on the market for some time? Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I can tell you one thing. I'm working with a contractor right now who came to me because he is bidding a project where the wall assembly was spec'd for a different product, a completely different product, and it's very expensive. And he's doing a multi-unit and needs wall assemblies. And so we're now pricing out those wall assemblies with TechWood, and I guarantee you they're going to come in less expensive. So cost is one of the major issues, and I think sometimes the materials, people are used to working with wood. They know how that works. Some of these other engineered type materials, people are usually reluctant to try something new. They tend to be expensive, and then you have to follow the directions. In terms of the actual wall assembly that we built and have listed, it's pretty standard. As I said, it's a your basic traditional wood frame wall with sheetrock on one side of it and plywood sheathing, treated plywood sheathing on the other side of it, and the sheathing is covered with a stucco. Let's go ahead and end the webinar so everybody can get back to work.